This week, as part of my training course in California, I had to talk about the Java latest features, and most of the features I use are released, but one of them that I happen to favor is what they call pattern matching and switch. And that's been a preview feature of Java for 4 consecutive versions. I mean, it's going to be released in Java 21, but in 17, 18, 19, and even 20, it's still a preview. Now, I mentioned here that this is a little bit of the history of the Eclipse IDE, which you can even take a look at if I Google eclipse.org. I guess I could go to .org here. And you see it's now the entire foundation that has lots of stuff in it. And if I look under projects, then eventually you can find the Eclipse IDE. Any rate, I did a search on basic Java stuff. And what I do want to show you is they have various parts associated with the IDE itself, like the Java persistence tools and JavaScript development tools, believe it or not. There's the Java development tools that are part of the IDE. There is also Eclipse Adoptium, which is their implementation of the JDK itself. I know there's a quick shortcut to go directly to, for example, the IDE itself. Here, I just clicked on the download link and that brought me to the Eclipse IDE. So it's been available there. I mean, it's still available in a big way. Now, this came out, I looked it up. Turns out it was November of 2001 was when they first released the Eclipse IDE. And up to then, we used a variety of either shareware editors or a couple of very expensive commercial tools. The most interesting one was IBM's Visual Age for Java, which had an interesting color scheme and detached windows and didn't even have a repository exactly. It encoded everything and kept it in a binary file locally. So, I mean, it was just very, very different. And some people had that. A lot of people used Borland's JBuilder, and there were a few others. I was teaching Java back in around 2000. That's when I started as a trainer, was in May of 2000. So it's been, wow, at the end of this month will be 23 years, believe it or not, since my first course. Any rate, when Eclipse came out, that kind of wiped out the whole, both the shareware market and most of the guts of the commercial IDE market, because Eclipse was free and it was very powerful. It had everything you needed. And it was released by IBM as part of a consortium, but it was really IBM, and this was part of their move to what they eventually called Rational Application Developer. I think that for a while they called it WebSphere Studio Application Developer, something like that, and then moved to Rational Application Developer, and the core of it was what they called Eclipse. Here's an old logo back from when it was on version 4.4, when they were still naming them after astronomical bodies. They did Galileo and Io. They did moons of Jupiter. They never did Io, actually, but they did Europa and Ganymede. And they didn't want to do Io because it looked like input-output, and it looked like 10, and they didn't want that either. So they went to Galileo for that one, and then they went to Luna, and then eventually they went back to others. And I think they followed letters alphabetically all the way up to P before they gave up and just started naming it after the year. So be it. So at the time, I didn't make the connection, by the way, that there's a very obvious relationship between the word Eclipse and the word Sun, as in Sun Microsystems, which IBM denied. They said it's just complete coincidence, has nothing to do with that. Well, Sun certainly didn't think it was a complete coincidence, and I could understand that. Yeah, I don't know that I believe it either. Sun released their own IDE called NetBeans, which was pure Java all the way through, and therefore looked equally bad on every platform, to be honest with you. And it just wasn't great. But some people used it. There was a small but somewhat vocal community of NetBeans users. I haven't run into one of them in a while now. I use it occasionally. At any rate, I was an Eclipse user from when it came out, late 2001, early 2002, and until about 2010, when I finally switched over to IntelliJ IDEA. And the clincher for me was that Android, which was from Google, of course, used something called the Android Developer Tools plugin for Eclipse for many years. And then one year at Google I/O, they announced, we're going to introduce this new thing called Android Studio, which was based on the same core as IntelliJ IDEA. And when they did that, they said, we're not deprecating the Eclipse plugin. But yeah, okay, within 2 years, that was a non-starter anymore. And everybody did Android Studio. And I figured if I was going to learn Android Studio anyway, I might as well learn IntelliJ IDEA. And I really liked it. It had a significant learning curve for Eclipse people. But once you got over that learning curve, it's just so much nicer. And now, of course, the market share for IntelliJ just dwarfs the size of Eclipse. Nevertheless, actually, there's a couple last things here. The Eclipse Adoptium site, in fact, if I go to adoptium.net, you'll see that the pre-built OpenJDK binary refers to something called Temurin. The Eclipse Temurin, if you will, is their code name for it. And people are like, where the heck did that name come from? And as I pointed out in the newsletter, there's two definitions of it. One is that it's an organic molecule that bears a strong resemblance to caffeine. You notice it's just got the extra oxygen molecule off to the right and the CH3 molecule down here as well. So methane, I believe that is. And I don't know what the properties are or anything. You could look it up, but it looks like caffeine, and caffeine is Java. You get the gag. The other thing, of course, is that the word Temurin is an anagram for the word runtime. So if you rearrange the letters, you see RUNTIME, believe it or not. And there it is. So silly reasons, but there it is. So when I was running my class, I had one person in class this week that was an Eclipse user, and I ran a latest features in Java course as a no fluff, just stuff virtual workshop about a week and a half ago. And again, I had one person in class who was an Eclipse user, and I had all kinds of problems getting everything to work properly in Eclipse because it made it difficult to set the Eclipse version so it understood preview features in Java. And I eventually figured out how to make it work, but it wasn't fun and it wasn't easy. So I decided to record a video about that, and that's this video, the Use Java Preview Features in Eclipse. You see I got to have a little bit of fun making my making the thumbnail, as they say, for the video. So that was fun. And I figured, again, that, you know, how many Eclipse users are there? I don't know. And the number's gone down every year. So I don't know how many people are going to care about that. But the ones who will care a lot. So I figured it was worth it anyway. You know, so I kind of had fun doing that one. That's also, by the way, the first time I've actually kind of scripted my video. I normally don't do that. I have a few talking points and then I just kind of record it. And if I haven't figured everything out, I just throw that out and do it again. So this one saved me an extra recording, I guess, and it helped me clarify what I was going to say. You might see that t-shirt, which is a little bit hidden there. Yes, after mentioning it in last week's newsletter, there I went and ordered it, and it is Rage Against the Machine Learning. I was going to wear it today, and I thought, nah, it's all right. So I like that. I was going to get some other colors. The problem is they only had black writing against all those other colors, and it didn't look as good in all the colored ones. So I stuck with the gray here, or the beige, or whatever the heck it is. It's hard to tell from the picture. I guess it was a lighting issue. But I mentioned, keep in mind the camera adds 10 pounds, and there were at least 3 cameras on me at the time. Yes. Okay. One last thing about YouTube at this point. I got a very nice comment from somebody named Deepak Kumar pointing out how much they enjoyed my videos on O'Reilly and other ones, and I felt I wanted to include it. You can read it if you want. I'm going to leave it alone, but I really enjoyed that. That kind of made my week. So that's the end of that section, and now we'll go on to the next one.